Crystal, I just want to, for a second, I know we're coming up on the top of the hour and I asked you earlier, but how much more time can you give me? Because I still have a bunch of questions. So you tell me. Okay. All right. Because we could always come back and do another episode in the future.
No, go for it.
All right. Gigi, just make a note of the time that I went off script here, and so we can clean this up. Thanks.
Welcome to the Agents of Change, the podcast experience you've been waiting for your entire marketing career. Search, social, mobile, AI, blockchain, and neuromarketing. These are the Agents of Change, and so are you. Digital marketing success awaits, and your transformation begins now.
Welcome to another episode of the Agents of Change podcast, the podcast that's here to help you reach and engage more of your ideal customers online. My name's Rich Brooks. I'm your host, and this is episode 572, powered by Flight New Media. So as you probably guessed from the bumper, this is the second half of an amazing interview with Crystal Carter, all about how you can rank well at the LLMs, the large language AI models like ChatGPT and Claude. If you didn't hear last week's episode, I strongly recommend you check out that one first. Otherwise, it's going to be like walking into a TV show halfway through, but there's no one sitting on the couch next to you to answer your questions. So please, go and check that episode out first, and then come back to listen to this week's episode. Actually, I just asked Claude to do a previously on summary. Here goes. Previously on the Agents of Change podcast. SEO expert Crystal Carter revealed why businesses need to optimize for AI tools like ChatGPT and Gemini, which are already getting billions of monthly views. She shared her personal discovery of how these tools recognize or fail to recognize businesses, introduced us to the concepts of entities in AI search, and explained why Wikipedia plays such a crucial role in how AI tools understand businesses. Just as we were exploring how different AI search tools work, we had to pause. Now we're back to learn exactly how to make your business visible in AI search. Yeah, pretty good job. Before we jump in, a reminder that I am looking to send you a $100 gift card for your favorite restaurant or business. All I ask in return is just a little bit of feedback on this show. Just head on over to theagentsofchange.com/survey. Should take you about 2 minutes to fill out, and you'll be entered to win. But just make sure you take care of this before the end of February 2025 so that you can be entered. Okay. You're all caught up. Now, let's jump into part two. So some part of LLM optimization is SEO optimization, and
Absolutely.
That's probably going to continue. So one of the things that you've said is that LLMs are not trying to click or rank our content, but rather they are trying to interpret our content. What do you mean by that exactly, and how does it impact our work as we try and optimize for the LLMs?
So I think they have a different intent. Right. So one of the things that I was looking at was the way that Common Crawl crawls website. Right. So I've looked at lots of crawls for websites. And basically, normally what happens when a bot comes to your website is they will crawl lots of pages. They will come and they'll crawl lots of things. Lots of people are saying oh, you should ban all the search engine, all the LLM bots so that they can't crawl your website and stuff. And I'm like, I don't think so. But I do think we should manage the crawl. Right. They don't need to see. There's certain pieces, they don't need to see your T's and C's necessarily. There are going to be parts of your website that they don't need to see. And for those, you can, just in the same way that you would manage a crawl for any search engine, for those, you can manage that crawl so that they don't see certain pages and so that they don't waste their time crawling all those pages. So when we think about the navigating thing, the clicking and ranking, sometimes we have pages that are indexed. Sometimes we have pages that are on our sitemap that are navigational purposes, right? So they're category pages or they are pagination pages and things like that don't necessarily, that might rank, right? I've seen category pages rank. I've seen pagination pages rank, right? They might rank, but that's not going to show on a ChatGPT. That's not going to show on a Copilot. That's not going to show on Gemini, for instance. It might be that people might even click on your page 2 of your collection of, Marvel characters or something, but that's not going to show on ChatGPT. That's not going to show on Bing, Copilot, et cetera, et cetera. So we don't necessarily need to show those pages to an LLM. So when you're thinking about your robots.txt and managing your crawl, particularly for those tools, I think that we need to be thinking about making sure that it's all killer, no filler. So make sure that the things that they're seeing are things that they can interpret, the things that they can use to interpret how your business works, what you do, things that add value to users that are discovering your content via an LLM, rather than the kind of spray and pray that we sometimes do in terms of architecture of websites. And I think that will yield better results than just having them crawl everything. Because what I was finding, that particularly with Common Crawl, they were crawling every single page, right? Now, Google Mobile, for instance, will come and they'll crawl a lot of page, like the Google Mobile bot will come and they'll crawl a lot of pages. But for Common Crawl, for instance, which is one of the original ones that was used for the ChatGPT training, they'll come and crawl every single page. And like, they don't need to crawl every single page. They only need to crawl the pages that will help them to learn more about your business. And so I think it's important to think about the crawl intent as you think about managing the crawl.
Another thing on our websites is schema. And you and I have had conversations about schema in the past. How big a deal is schema when it comes to optimizing for LLM? And if schema is important, how might you prioritize the different types of schema? Like if we have limited time, like so many SMBs do, where might you start that work?
So I think that this is really, really useful in helping you to define your entities. Right. So schema can allow you to get really, really granular with the relationships that are latent within your business, within your content. So for instance, on a homepage, for instance, you could say this business, you can have your organizational schema, which has your address, has your name, has your phone number, has the founder, has the founder's alma mater, has, what you're known for, has lots of different sections of your business, has all of those different elements. And essentially, like, your schema allows you to define those entities in a way that is very digestible for machines. And it will allow LLMs to have a much stronger grasp of the entities that are present on your page. And it will also help you to organize the way that you think about your content. Sometimes I think it's worth going to like schema.org, as I like to do, because I'm just that kind of nerd. And if you hang out on the page and have a look at the kinds of things that are relevant for that particular entity. For instance, like there's one of my favorite ones is amusement park. They have an entity, or they have a schema, a set of schema for amusement park, and they will have all of the different elements that they expect to see for an amusement park. And if you are an amusement park owner or have a website that's talking about amusement parks, then you can look and see all of these things, and basically you can use it as a checklist. And with an LLM, what's super useful is you can take that list, you can copy it, put it in a spreadsheet, fill in all of the details that are relevant to you, and then you can take that spreadsheet and ask an LLM to write the schema for you. We have on the Wix SEO Learning Hub, we have a podcast tool, a podcast resource that gives lots of ways to optimize your podcast. And there's a tab, one of the tabs is specifically for podcasts. And basically it goes through all of the podcast elements. You can add in all of the things, and you literally take that, copy it, paste it into an LLM. They will write out all the schema for you, and just make sure that you go through and make sure they're not making up URLs for your images or anything like that. But you can get really, really far with that. So I think that it's a great time to be interested in schema, because there are so many tools to help you with some of the heavy lifting. And I think it will also help you to be more machine readable for these LLM machines.
Yeah, make it as easy as possible for these LLMs to understand what we're all about. Again, it just comes down to, for a lot of small and medium-sized businesses, it's just time and resources that they can put towards this. You have, like, your stuff is so rich, and I'm not just saying it, it's just brilliant, and you obviously can spend a lot of time. Your job allows you to spend this much time running these experiments, staying on top of all the changes, checking over and over again how you're doing. How can normal human beings who don't have that opportunity, have other responsibilities, how can they stay on top of the changes in LLMs? Are there tools out there? Are there techniques that you have discovered that make it easier for people to know how they're doing? In the same way that we might use a tool like Ahrefs or SEMrush to know how we're ranking at the search engines, are there similar things for staying on top of LLMs?
Yeah. So in my LLM brand tracker, again, available on the Wix SEO Learning Hub, there's a couple of different tools that help you do this. So I've got an LLM brand tracker, which is super useful. It's a spreadsheet and you can use it in two ways. You can either like go by hand and sort of add things in. You can also connect it to something called GPT for Sheets. So GPT for Sheets it's a very accessible tool, and you can essentially break it down into which LLM you're using. So you can break it down into different versions of ChatGPT. You can use Gemini, different levels of Gemini, Claude, et cetera, et cetera. And essentially what it allows you to do is you can bulk query ChatGPT. So you would add in a query sort of like, who's the fairest of them all? And then you can use a piece of code and you can just say GPT A3. And so it will go to A3, it will look at the question in A3, and then it will print you out an output of what was in A3. And you can do this for hundreds of queries, and it will run them regularly. So once you set up your sheet, again, the sheet that I've got on the sheet that I have available is a great starting point. And there's some really easy ways where you can literally add in some of that code with the GPT for Sheets, for instance, and it allows you to run those in bulk. Seer Interactive, you mentioned Will Reynolds, like they have some great services. If you're like, that's too much, I don't want to do it. Like they're a team that are able to help you with that. That's something that they offer as well. SpyFu from Riverflow AI, they have a tool that allows you to see if people have asked about your brand. So they've run millions of queries, and you can go through and see the results of some of those queries. Otterly AI also is tracking some AI things as well. But I think it's also worth thinking of it as like Googling yourself, in the same way that like most businesses know which are their sort of like canary in the gold mine keywords, right? Like, like which ones are like your money keywords. And you will just occasionally be like, all right, we still ranking? Great, cool. Still ranking now? Great, awesome. Or maybe it's just me. So I think it's worth just checking every few months or so, particularly, and it's also worth keeping up with some of the updates from some of the tools. So ChatGPT are constantly updating their data sets. They're constantly building collaborations. So one of the things is that they have collaborations with lots of different major publishers. And they work with people like Hearst, Vox Media, Condé Nast, News Corp, which incorporates like the Sun and the New York Post, but it also incorporates a lot of smaller local newspapers. So I live in a fairly small town, and our local newspaper is part of that same group, for instance, and Time is also part of that as well. So they are constantly building partnerships. In the last year, they've built loads of partnerships, which means that they're able to access any of the information that's from within the wheelhouse of those particular publications. So, for instance, things that have previously been published in News Corp are now going to be part of the data set for OpenAI. So that means that if your local business was covered in your local newspaper, which is part of that media group, then you're likely to be included in that. So it's worth paying attention to which ones those are. And it can also help you to plan out your digital PR, your backlinks, which backlinks or which guest posts or which things you're going to be doing online, so that you can be strategic about that. And I think that there are some great publications that keep up with that. Like I think The Verge, or like they cover a lot of things around AI as well, and Barry Schwartz covers a lot of the different AI elements that are that are search related as well. So I would say it's worth doing that too. But
it sounds like, sorry to interrupt, it sounds like that PR is also one key component in doing this, and getting, whether you get covered by these local papers that may be part of these partnerships, or perhaps even, especially in a small local newspaper, I know that I've had opportunities to write articles for some local publications. And so that might be another way to increase our visibility within the LLMs as well. Totally.
So the other thing is, so every newspaper is an entity. Right. And some of these local newspapers, like our local newspaper, I think they shut it down or whatever. But I think they shut it down a few years ago, but it had been going since like 1897 or something like that. And it had a Wikipedia page and all of those sorts of things. So it's worth having a look. Like if the publication has a Wikipedia page, like it's an entity. OK, and you can check it. You can ask ChatGPT, do you know this newspaper? And they'll be like, yeah, we know this, and this about this newspaper. Like, great. I do want to write in a column. I do want to be covered. I do want my face on the cover of that magazine, like, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, absolutely. PR is definitely something that will help you with that, because they're all entities, and also because these LLMs are making active partnerships with these publications, because these publications help them to ground their knowledge. They want to be more accurate. They want to be as accurate as possible. They want to reduce hallucinations, and the more facts that they have from things like Wikipedia, from things like newspapers that have an ongoing conversation about a particular topic. So like a local newspaper will have all of the information about all of the major events that have happened in that local place. That's high value for an LLM. So if you're part of that, then they will know that you're in that area, that you are, an important part of that community. They will know how you are related to all of those elements. And that's super valuable. And it's not rocket science. Like, that's something that we can do. Everybody can do that.
It seems like a lot of the things that were traditionally good for raising a brand's profile are now becoming important again. Maybe they were always important, but especially with the rise of LLMs. All right, so we talked a little bit about getting into these entities, the local papers especially. So like, I'm thinking about link building, but I'm also thinking about like, as an SEO, our KPIs are usually around clicks, they're around traffic, they're around conversions. It doesn't sound like those are the right KPIs for LLM optimization, or are they? What would you be tracking if you were the marketer or owner of a small to medium-sized business? What would you be paying attention to know that the work that you're putting into this, you're getting something out on the other side, a positive ROI?
So I think that there's a couple of things. So you should absolutely be tracking any traffic that's coming from these LLMs in GA4. I mentioned the regex in my deck, which is in my article. There's the full regex. You can also go to Jess Schultz's. I don't know if she's pinned it, but she should. Jess, if you can hear me, pin this to your LinkedIn. That she shared a great regex which talks about this, and it pulls out all of the different LLMs, and you can see them and you can see the traffic. And I had a look at this, and what I found was interesting was I saw that there was actually a lot more from Perplexity than I was expecting. And that was mostly because Perplexity was one of the first LLM tools, search tools, that was like full on links. Like they were just straight away, we got links. And everybody else is like, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure. But they were straight in on links. So absolutely track that there, because that will give you an estimation. Like we don't know the click-through rates for LLMs. However, if you're getting any clicks, that means you must have shown a good amount of time. So I don't know, ballpark, finger in the air, I'd probably say like 10x it or whatever. And I'd put that as a general sort of thing. But you want a general upward trend of traffic. So you want to be watching that. So absolutely watch that. The other thing that's worth checking is checking your visibility, checking your accuracy. So again, I'd probably zero in on maybe like 4 or 5 queries that are your like money queries that will be relevant to the kinds of questions that people ask to you, and I'd regularly check those to see that they're accurate and that they're coming through. The other thing that I would have a look at in terms of trying to find ROI, trying to find all of that sort of stuff, is trying to make sure that you're showing there accurately, but also that you're showing up for the things that you would expect to see for the journey there. And then also, I think it's worth thinking about making sure that you're being proactive. So when you're getting involved with this, I think the expectations should be more like CRO than like straight SEO. So with CRO, you have to have a certain amount of volume in order to be able to get like real actionable results, right? If you're only getting 200 views a month, then it's kind of difficult to say whether or not, you change the button from green to blue if it made any difference. If you're getting 2 million views per month, then you will get a lot of data and you'll be able to ascertain whether or not changing the button from green to blue is a lot. So if you're a smaller business, then I think you should expect to see a smaller lift over a longer period of time. If you're a bigger business, then you should expect to see a bigger lift over a shorter period of time. So, the other thing that you can do, and this is something that I was thinking of, and then I heard Will Reynolds say it, and I felt better about it as well, is that you can add in where they say, how did you find out about our business? Add in ChatGPT and add it up higher at the top, right? Like, because ChatGPT has now become like the Kleenex, the Google, the Windex of these things. So put ChatGPT at the top so that people know. And I've heard businesses who are fairly small businesses who have been like, yeah, we're getting a lot of people who are actually saying that they've heard about us from ChatGPT. And that, that's gold dust, because when you get those people, you can call them back and go, what'd you hear? What did they say? What did it say? Tell me.
Right.
Please.
Well, and this is just one data point, but I did have somebody late last year who told me that they had found us, because I always ask, how'd you find us? And they said, well, and I forget what the AI tool was, and I want to say it might have been Copilot, but whatever it was, they said they were having a bad experience with their agency. And they said, what are other agencies like this? I assume they asked it in such a way so it wasn't like bad agencies, but Flight New Media was at the top of that list that was similar in size or scope or offerings to this one. That was a very obvious case, which led to me having a sales call. So that was like a piece of data that was important to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if you're starting to see that, oh, we got one this month, we got 7 this month, we got 10 this month, like that upward trend, that will be able to tell you that like this is worth investing in. Again, like because this is still growing, I wouldn't expect to see like millions and millions and millions of people coming through your door straight away. But I think at the moment, we still kind of have early, like first movers advantage in terms of optimizing these, because lots of people are using them, but not a lot of people are thinking about reverse engineering them at the moment. So I think that if you were forward thinking in that way, then you will already be ahead by the time it becomes like properly mainstream of moving all of those things forward. So absolutely ask what people are doing, ask how people found you. Track your traffic when you're going there. And then also I would say be proactive. Tools like Perplexity allow you to make your own pages. You can make your own pages on Perplexity and you can just get involved. ChatGPT, you can build your own custom GPT and you can get involved there, and you can put your own links into your custom GPT. So you can make it so that the output is a blog that you wrote. The output is a link to a resource that you have. The output takes them to a thing that they have to log in on their own page, whatever it may be. But like be proactive, because if you've got 2 billion people using ChatGPT, for instance, almost 3 billion, then the custom GPTs that people use sit at the top. Like when you go into the interface, there's all your queries on the left-hand side, and then above them are the custom GPTs that you've used. Well, guess what? If your brand is up there all the time, that's great brand visibility. And it doesn't take that long to build a custom GPT. So you can easily get some ROI from that. And it will also keep your brand front of mind for people that are using LLMs, because you're literally front of mind when they use the LLM.
So I did want to ask you a little bit about creating your own custom GPTs, because I saw that. I'm realizing now I feel like that's almost a whole nother episode unto itself. So when we're talking about creating custom GPTs, this is something that we can do. I've created a few myself already, but how are some different ways to market it? Like, for example, I know that Maycon, the marketing AI conference, has some custom GPTs they created, and they actually embedded them right into their website beyond just having them at OpenAI's ChatGPT. Is there a whole strategy behind this so you increase the visibility and usage of your custom GPT, again, just as a way to enhance your visibility when it comes to these LLMs?
Yeah. I think that the promotion of the custom GPT is very similar to promoting a blog or any other asset. So I very often see them promoted on social media, on websites, on linking to different things there. But I think that there are ways to optimize it ways to optimize them for search. It's very important to remember that custom GPTs rank, right? So the GPT has a URL. And those custom GPTs rank on Google. So if somebody's looking for a custom GPT, they will find it from Google. So you can optimize that page in the same way that you would optimize any other asset with keywords for search engine optimization, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's really important to think about, is that you should be optimizing those pages. Same with Perplexity pages, they also rank. And so it's worth remembering that you should optimize them for that search as well. So not only are you able to capture search from ChatGPT, but you're also able to capture search from Google, from Bing, et cetera. On the page, like when you get to your landing page, it's also worth thinking about how you optimize. You can add in your links, you can add in different prompts, you can add in all of those different things. And those will give you, that's an opportunity for you to sort of show what your brand's about. and an opportunity to sort of, set out your stall really with folks. So I think that the on page is really important, but also there's a couple of them that I've seen, and they will, again, they embed their links within the output. So if I ask, there's one that I use, it's like a flowchart one, and when you ask it to carry out the task, it pulls out, it generates the flowchart and it says, would you like to download it? Go here. And then you can download it from the other thing. And at that point, I'm like, yeah, sure. Okay. I don't mind. Like, I'll give you some traffic because you just did this thing for me for free that I didn't want to do. So like, that's good. So I think it's worth thinking about that. And I think that when you're, if you can embed it, like, again, that's another good opportunity to get you traffic to your page as well when you're promoting it. But I think it's very much similar to optimizing any asset, but it also gives you the value of being seen to be forward moving in this space, because everyone's moving towards AI. AI's in everything. Even for folks who are like, I don't like AI, it's everywhere. Like, they keep adding it to everything. So, you can't avoid it. So it makes you as a business seem forward thinking, which is of great value to your team as well.
Crystal, a lot of your recommendations today, such as like having an accurate Wikipedia page and partnering with the LLMs, to some degree feel like great advice for large enterprises. But for small to medium-sized businesses who are likely not to have a Wikipedia page and will never earn a Wikipedia page, don't have the clout to partner with these LLMs, what advice would you give them? What can they do to start taking advantage of this?
Okay, so for smaller businesses, I think that there are a couple of things that everyone can do. So when you're thinking about your backlinks, you should absolutely, and y'all should all be doing links. I'm sorry, you should always be getting links. If you're sponsoring, and I think also have a think about which teams, which partners within your midst have that kind of clout, right? Have that kind of Wikipedia page, for instance. So for instance, like, I'm on the board of my local library. They have a Wikipedia page, right? Like, they have a Wikipedia page. So that's what we're thinking about. I've had clients who've sponsored the local like marathon, for instance. They're also available as well. Like, that's also something you could think about. Your local newspaper, that's something you could think about. So think about the partners that you have. If you went to a college or a university, those are all entities. So you can get involved with the alumni program at your university. You can go and do a talk at your university. And again, that will get you onto that website, which is already listed by an LLM, et cetera, et cetera. And you can make sure that the other thing that you can do is when you're partnering with all of these, make sure that your bio, your team write-up is optimized for the entities about your business, right? So and some of these core entities can be things like, we are an automotive repair shop, right? Like, if they know what that is, what an automotive repair shop is, like, that's an entity. We are a tree surgeon. That's also an entity, right? So make sure that you say, like, Rich Brooks tree surgeon is a tree surgeon, right? Like, not like Rich Brooks creative tree design for things. Like, sometimes I hear people and they're and I'm like, what do you actually do? Like,
Right.
I'm sure you've seen those businesses and you're like, I can't tell what you do. Be very clear with what you do and use those elements. So I would say, think about that. I think it's also worth thinking about some of these things. So, like, for instance, Perplexity pages, anybody can set up a Perplexity page. Anyone can do that. You literally just pay and do that. Anyone can set up a custom GPT. Anybody can do that as well. And I think that when you're thinking about your content, making sure that your content is clear and making sure that your content makes sense and making sure that your content is optimized for value and for the kinds of questions that people are asking is really useful as well. So I think that's important to remember when you're thinking about LLMs. It's important to use LLMs. So sometimes people want to do ChatGPT because they've heard about it, but they never use it. ChatGPT is free to use. You can use it for free. Perplexity is free. Copilot is free. But you should have a go at the kinds of conversations that you're going to be having with these tools, because people don't ask the questions in the same way, right? If I was to go and look up something about a butterfly or something, I might just type in like monarch butterfly into Google. and then expect to get some information about monarch butterflies. They might filter me, like that sort of stuff. If I go to ChatGPT, I might say, which is bigger, a monarch butterfly or a peacock butterfly? And they would say, oh, this one is that one. And I say, well, if I live in California and I was near a river and I saw a yellow and black butterfly, was that a monarch butterfly or some other kind of butterfly? And like, I've done this to try to figure out which bird I was looking at. And the kinds of queries that they ask are much different from the kinds of queries that people ask to a search engine. I would never ask that question to a search engine because I would get nothing back. So I think it's important to think about that, and to think about and to understand the kinds of conversations, and to also understand the kind of flow that you have on your website. So if your website is able to supply some of that information, then that's great. That's great for you, because for some of these queries, I was looking up like a really rare health condition recently, and I'd been trying to figure out stuff from standard search for ages, but in the end I went to an LLM and it pointed me to it gave me some recommendations, and I was like, I don't want to look at the rest of your recommendations, ChatGPT. I want to go to this actual website because it's taken me so long to find this, and these people know how they might be able to help me with this particular condition. And so if you have something that is niche, that is clear, that is distinct, being distinct is really, really good value to you right now. And that's something that's worth investing in.
That is awesome information. This has been mind-blowingly, sometimes mind-numbingly great information that you provided, Crystal. And so with that in mind, if you had to give people running an SMB one actionable step, something that they could do today to start their journey for optimizing for LLMs, what would that one thing be?
Optimize your Google business profile.
Perfect. Like, simple answer. Love it.
Because that forms your knowledge panel for your business. So optimize your Google business profile and add your business information, local business information on your website with schema to match it.
Perfect. This has been fantastic. Crystal, if people want to learn more about you, about any of the tools that you mentioned from Wix today, where can we send them?
So I've written a great article, if I don't say so myself, called SEO for Brand Visibility in LLMs on the Wix Studio Learning Hub. And not only does it have lots of the information that I shared here, but there's some more information. So there's an article there. There's also a deck there as well. And also I've written a resource that you can have a go at, and you can query some of the things about your brand and see if you're there and see if your competitors are there and things like that as well. I've had some great feedback on that, and I hope that it's helpful to you.
Crystal, at the end of every episode, I always tell people, hey, thank you for your time. But oh my God, thank you for your time. I know we went over. I really appreciate you sticking around and answering all of our questions. And you are welcome back on this program anytime you want.
Oh, thanks so much. Happy to be here. Thanks, Rich.
That was some amazing content. I mean, obviously, it was a lot of content. That's why we split it into 2 episodes. If you go back to the website now, you can get there by going to theagentsofchange.com/572. You'll see the full transcript is up, blog posts, summaries, key takeaways, everything you need to really start to put this into action for your business, because this is something that you're really going to need to put into action. It's critical for your growth, for your visibility, everything we preach here on the Agents of Change podcast. Again, would love to hear a little bit more about how you found the show and what you're thinking about the show. And I'd love to reward you with a $100 gift certificate. All you need to do is go to theagentsofchange.com/survey. It'll take you 2 minutes to fill it out. Complete that by the end of February 2025 to be entered, and you are good to go. That's all for this week. Join us next week, where our guest won't be Crystal Carter, but it'll still be one amazing digital marketer.
Don't miss another thrilling episode of the Agents of Change podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform.